Welcome back to Eden Zero, and we review episode number 3. Discuss the newest episode of the series, Adventures. This episode finished up adapting chapter 3, and it goes through the entirety of chapter 4. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So it finishes up the intro arc and starts up the Norma arc, which, in case you're curious though, this arc is roughly 8 chapters. So I wouldn't be surprised though, because this episode happened the first chapter of it. I would not be surprised though if in fact this thing is finished in about 3 episodes, give or take. Episode has is basically where Shiki and Rebecca go back into the Adventures Guild, and then they meet the receptionist. Yeah, this little moment was actually cut off from the actual manga itself for some strange reason. I don't know why, but it was. And she gets introduced to him. Her name is Chisia, I think her name is. So they get used to her. Of course, you're basically trying to register. And then we have immediately right after this, we have Lima. The character looks like the grown-up Wendy from the Edrosverse from Fairy Tail. By the way, there's a Fairy Tail Easter egg in here, which I'm so happy they kept in here. I'll get to that. So basically, everyone's like, "Oh, it's Lemma-chan. Can I get your autograph?" And she says, 100,000 for the autograph, 50,000 for the picture, and she just draws some poop. Well, not literal poop per se. It looks like a big glop, and that's your autograph, really, for a famous beekeeper. And so yeah, she's a famous beekeeper. She was up as a super beekeeper and caused Rebecca to cry because of her insults. Shiki, of course, basically grabs her by the arm, uses ether gear to turn her upside down. I'm surprised it doesn't show off her panties. Yeah, it's quite hilarious. And of course, Rebecca drags her away to a diner. And then the thing that serves them is not a robot, but Pooh! Well, Blue. The character first appeared in Raid Master, and then popped up in Fairy Tail, though was a minor character. Here, apparently, it's a whole species of Poohs. Blues. It is so, and they've heard of this thing as a dog. Seriously, a freaking dog, which that's a nod to Rave Mask because this thing was treated as their dog. Yep, I thought that was so hilarious. And, oh, by the way, they actually have a couple get up right from the table behind them, and it's Natsu and Lucy. Yes, making a cameo. Though they actually changed it, we don't see their faces. In the manga, you clearly can tell it's Natsu and Lucy. Do you see your face? Here, they actually changed the perspective of this one because in the manga, they came from, because where the booth was, which they changed here, they still came from behind, I think it was Rebecca, but I think they swapped like a camera angle per se, at least where the booth was. Because in the manga, they were coming from Rebecca's left. Well, basically mostly this side here. In the anime, they switched this side, but they only show their back. And the one we get to is Lucy. She shows off her Fairy Tail print, which I'm quite surprised that JC Staff was letting to get away with this, due to the fact that, well, Fairy Tail was made by A1 Pictures. Yeah. Maybe agree, maybe because it's also in the manga too, which is kind of hilarious. Yep. And then, of course, she gets this adventure card. And I figure, okay, what do with adventures? Well, go see Mother, of course. Yep. So set everybody up. So they gotta get a new ship and get some allies. Like, okay. And meanwhile, though, Elsa Crimson shows up with her and her pirate crew. And, of course, looking for Shiki to talk to the receptionist. This whole scene is pretty much accurate up in the manga. So, meets up with her, and it's like, and of course, the receptionist doesn't give anything away, but the guy's like, yeah, I know where he is. The place got Nobu. Norma, I think the name of the planet is. It's like, that's a dead star. Well, they get, the outside and not the inside. Meanwhile, though, we actually have it where, well, Shiki, Rebecca, and Happy get back in the spaceship, and they fly to Norma. They showed Shiki's guest room. They basically made the obvious joke, like, why can't we share a room together? I mean, at least they're not saying that, why didn't they share the same bed together? Yeah. She's like, no. And then he pretty much starts flying that ship. You actually see it. You actually see him fly the ship, like a little bit of the ship. You actually fly into the planet itself, which this whole sequence is complete anime original, which I love the fact they did this. Because it's like very quick, like as soon as they get there, bam, on the planet crash, that's it. It was like really quick. In the anime, it's like you actually fly to the planet, go through the atmosphere, avoiding these pillars, which they refer to as Earth ether crystals, which basically gives people some with the magic. Like, that's interesting. And of course, Shiki himself moves the ship back with his ether gear, and then of course they go to this looks like a bunker, and it's basically an elevator down to the city underground, which looks like it looks like kind of like a modern day city, because we don't see this for a series that's not set in modern day, and yet this looks like a modern city. Mostly, it looks like a city based on the cars. I'd say from the '60s. I'd say possibly. And of course, they go to this place from this house, basically owned by a doctor named Dr. Wise. Dr. Wise Skinner. And they go to the house, and of course, she picks up the goggles. That if you see any images for Eden Zero, yeah, this is the very goggles you're seeing wearing, and these are X-ray goggles. And they actually had a little funny little side, like, wow. Of course, first he looks at Happy, he sees Ryan Parts, and then he looks at Rebecca. And in case you're curious, though, did they cut in like naughty bits? Like, did they cut like the anime cut something? Like, did they show like below the chest? Like, no, this is actually how it presented in the manga. And then a blonde hair man shows up, and he's like, "Is this Dr. Wise's house?" Dr. Wise, he's like, "I'm Dr. Wise." And I'm probably like, "Who are you guys?" And they don't know each other. And then apparently we cut to like 2,000 years in the future, where we see these two astronauts on this dead moon, where they come across like a couple dead bodies, a man and a woman, and they come across and they pick up this object, which is Rebecca's little heart camera thing. And it says Eden Zero. We see up in the sky, look like a planet. Look like a ruins of a planet that basically has like this thing in it. What's the purpose of this flash forward? I don't know, because as far as I remember, this is never really brought up again, because we're basically back to present. Because there's actually a thing with Dr. Wise here, which is quite interesting. Yeah. So yeah. That's it for that. I mean, this is a great episode. I love it. If you're a fan of Fairy Tail, you will love the Natsu and Lucy camp, because last week we had Levy. This week it's Natsu and Lucy. Now Levy, that was completely unoriginal. She's not in the actual chapter that the material they adapt from. For Natsu and Lucy, yeah, that's actually in the manga. Though they don't show their faces, but look at their attires. It looks like the attires they wore when the show ended. Yeah, it's the very attires. Yeah, as for why the heck Natsu and Lucy are here, don't know. My guess is because, well, the creator created the fairy tale. He probably just dropped it as a cool little Easter egg and had to make a quick cameo here, probably to tease the eventual Heroes crossover that happened just like a year or two ago. I've actually read the whole thing. It's a great crossover between Raidmaster, Eden Zero, and Fairy Tail, which I hope that does get adaptation. Though, here's kind of the strange thing about this one. Their dubs are done by 3 different studios. Raidmaster, the original, was done by Tokyo Pop. Fairy Tail is done by Funimation. This one is going to be done by Netflix. Yeah, but time will tell when they get to that. But this episode did a really good job. In just 3 episodes, they've already covered the first 4 chapters. Excellent. Even though there's been, I think, officially 134 chapters released. So, I have heard that apparently the season's going to be about 25 episodes. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. It means they probably won't go very far. My guess is they might do 2 chapters an episode, and that'll probably be it. Even though, yes, they're up to chapter 4 right now. So far, I think they go to about 25 episodes. Do I think they cover 100 chapters? Probably not. My guess is they'll probably cover about 50 chapters, I'd say. It's possible. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we had a season 2 eventually. Yeah. Yeah, because, well, if you look at I'm looking at the arcs coming after this one, because after this one you have Skull Fairy, which is 3 chapters. Gildas, which is basically 14 chapters, which is quite lengthy of an arc. You have Digitales. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of this one. Yeah, that's my guess. It might end with that one, but who knows? It depends on what the anime wants to do. Yep. So yeah, that's it. Sick of you. Stay tuned to my reviews for My Hero Academia. One Piece and Boruto. Okay, to this video. Bye.